Much like with episode 1 of Dragon Ball Daima, episode 2 continues to set the foundation for things to come, while also continuing to feed us seemingly endless bits of lore. There's a lot of this show that I genuinely wonder if it's being done purposely by Toriyama to retcon himself, because we found out some things in this episode of Daima and in the first episode that are not what he had originally said many years ago in interviews or what was stated in the old guidebook material. So episode 2 gave us a number of Easter eggs and tidbits and things that you may have missed, and I want to address those here on the video and go into some of the lore that Dragon Ball Daima is trying to build going forward. Don't forget to leave a like if you're stopping by, and if you're new to Geekdom 101, remember to subscribe and enable all notifications so that way you don't miss a single video. We discuss all things Dragon Ball here, movies, anime, manga, and even some video games. We've been here for 10 years and many more to come. I thank you for your continued support. Let's get to the video. Dragon Ball Daima is borrowing aspects from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT, and a little bit from Dragon Ball Super. But one of the things it's borrowing from original Dragon Ball is not just the iconography of Goku being a kid again, like he was at the beginning of the series, but it's also borrowing the format of the TV episodes, because unlike Super and Z, where you had the recap, you had the intro, then the recap of the previous episode, the title card, then the main episode. In Daima, they're doing it to where you have a recap at the very, very beginning, a little bit of the new episode, followed by the intro to the show, then the title card, and then at the end of the episode, the next episode previews are very, very short. And that aspect is new to the series, because before they were all about 30 seconds. That goes for Dragon Ball, Z, GT, and even Super and Kai. Here, it's very, very brief teasers of the next episode. Early on, in fact, during the recap portion, we get our very first Easter egg, and that is when the dragon grants the wish and is about to leave, and then Goma asks, wait a minute, you were supposed to grant 3 wishes. And then the dragon says, that's just a bonus for regulars. He only grants 1 wish to new people. Now, while that does explain why in Dragon Ball Super Broly Chi got 1 wish, that doesn't really explain what happened in Resurrection F, because Sorbet and Tagoma were certainly newcomers, and in the movie version got 2 wishes, and in the TV show version got 3. So you sort of clean up one contradiction while also creating another, and that's something that to me worries me about Dragon Ball Daima, because there's more of that in this episode. In my review for the episode, I pointed out that this is likely the reason as to why Bulma kept using the dragon to give herself cosmetic physical upgrades, because she sees her skin as a kid again, and obviously when Daima ends, they're all going to go back to being adults, and then in the future she would use the Dragon Balls, actually misuse them in many ways, to make herself look younger and more attractive. In my review, I discussed how funny it was that we see Goten and Trunks talking to each other, but not really talking. We can just read their thoughts, and how they borrowed this from an old 80s comedy film called Look Who's Talking. I'm not sure how popular that movie was in Japan, and it's not a movie that's very well remembered here, but I don't think we've ever seen babies speaking telepathically in any of the Dragon Ball shows. So this is at least new for the franchise. I do consider it still an Easter egg, because it may have been Look Who's Talking, or perhaps there's a Japanese equivalent. Who knows? Something Dragon Ball Daima has already done a bit more consistent than GT is that Kid Goku, now after the wish, has to get reaccustomed to his body. Same thing goes for Vegeta and Piccolo. So even as martial artists and as skilled as they are, because you have new body with new weight distribution, your limbs are a different size and length, you have to get reaccustomed to it, which is why Goku struggles even flying. Something he's done for decades in this episode. GT, I felt, sort of was a bit inconsistent, where Goku would know some things and not know some things. Here it appears like Goku is sort of just needing time to adjust, and that's good. However, I will say that because Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo are all lifelong martial artists, that means it won't take that long for them to get reaccustomed to these new bodies. Supreme Kai confirms with Goku that Degasu is indeed his younger brother, and originally the reason for this is because Toriyama, many years ago in the early 2010s, discussed that all the Kais come from a magic kaiju tree that plants Shinjin fruit. I've talked about this in multiple videos recently because that is what the man himself said, and it was published and everything. It appears like that story may or may not have been dropped. But originally, we did not know the location of this tree. And also, originally in those days, the demon realm was set to be at the bottom of Universe 7, sort of tucked away from the rest of the universe. But now, Dragon Ball Daima is kind of intimating that the demon realm may exist in a separate part of the multiverse, and that the world between worlds could end up being a situation or a location where you can link to other universes because the demon realm is no longer a part of Universe 7 like Toriyama had originally said. Now, this was not said in Dragon Ball Z or in Dragon Ball Super. This was an interview Toriyama did many years ago for a magazine where he revealed this backstory. However, as many of you know, Toriyama is very forgetful, so it's possible that he just forgot, or the true answer has not been revealed yet. I think the best thing to do now is to wait and try to be patient and see where it goes and see if maybe we get a better explanation of the demon realm and how it fits with the multiverse in the next few weeks. Piccolo in this episode had a couple of very interesting bits of dialogue that tell us more about the backstory of the Namekians. He's the first one to reveal that Neva is the Namekian that stayed behind in the demon realm when the Namekians would port over, when they would come over from the demon realm into Universe 7. And the fact that Piccolo has knowledge of that is quite fascinating. Now, originally, I assumed that that knowledge was from Kami or from his days as Demon King Piccolo before he was reincarnated into this Piccolo. But multiple fans have hit me up about this and have reminded me that Piccolo also has Nail inside of his body as well. And that, I think, is the key, and I'll explain why. Based on just this right here, it seems like Neba is the only or one of the only Namekians still in the demon realm. Later in the episode, Piccolo reveals that the Namekians were part of the demon realm and that at one point they escaped into Universe 7. This is something that has already been established even in the first episode. However, the knowledge of this had to come from Nail. Now, why could this have come from Nail and not Kami or Piccolo? If you go back to the original manga and Dragon Ball Z, Nappa and Vegeta were the first ones to recognize Piccolo as being a Namekian. And prior to that, Piccolo and Kami both kind of had an idea they weren't from the planet Earth because of a sort of internal anxiety or feeling internally they had. They sensed it. But the Saiyans telling them that confirmed it. So based on that, they didn't know. However, the one person that probably did know was Nail. Now, how could Nail have known? Let's not forget what Nail's job was on planet Namek. He was the bodyguard for the Grand Elder of Namek, known as Guru in the English dub, known as Saichoro in the Japanese dub. Now, the Grand Elder of Namek birthed many of the Namekians throughout many years and is one of the oldest Namekians in existence, or at least he was at the time of the Frieza saga, which means that he's either as old as Neba or older or younger, but he's close to that sort of ancient Namekian type of lore. So obviously at some point off screen, and yes, this is an obvious retcon, but that's okay because there's tons of it in Dragon Ball. Daima as a whole is a bit of a retcon, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. Depends on how they handle it. But this makes sense to me because if Nail was the Grand Elder's #1 advisor, of course the Grand Elder probably told Nail all about Neba and the demon realm. So that would make the most sense as to why Piccolo knows and Kami and Piccolo didn't in the past. I thought it was maybe they unlocked a memory in my review, but I think the Nail explanation actually makes even more sense. Another very cool new bit of information is that the Supreme Kai has a ship that he uses to travel through the universe with. Now, this ship, I think, has caused some confusion, and yes, it is a new bit of story. We find out that the ship was damaged during the fight with Kid Buu at the very end of the Majin Buu saga, which was 6 months or so before Dragon Ball Daima. However, the new bit of information is that the Supreme Kai reveals that he came to Earth in the ship, or came to Universe 7 in the ship, that is to say. He literally says, long ago, I came to this universe in this spaceship. Now, it's not that he came to the universe from the Sacred Kai realm, because remember, and don't forget, Kibito has a special version of instant transmission slash instantaneous movement. It's his version where he can teleport to anywhere in Universe 7 because he is, of course, a demigod and an assistant to the Supreme Kai. Now, you have to understand the reason why his teleportation is better than Goku's is because Goku has to be able to lock onto a location or to energy to be able to teleport, whereas Kibito can go anywhere in Universe 7 with his teleportation. So when he brings the ship along, that just kind of confirms that Supreme Kai probably didn't need the ship to go from the Sacred Kai realm to Earth, rather to come into Universe 7. That would tell me that, once again, more clues that the demon realm may not be a part of just Universe 7. One of the frequently asked questions that we've gotten is, do all the universes have their own demon realm? And originally, I thought the answer was probably yes, because Toriyama's original diagram of the original universe, before he had even come up with the multiverse, showed that the Makai was at the very bottom of Universe 7. However, there's a couple clues that lead me to believe that maybe that's not the case. First of all, the previous episode showing the giant fish warp and the fact that they had sort of that world between worlds, that's one clue. And the next clue that I think is important is the fact that we have Namekians in Universe 7 and Universe 6. So it could be a situation to where when the Namekians left the demon realm, they may have split off into two different factions. One group went to Universe 6, one group went to Universe 7, and that's why we have two planet Nameks. That makes the most sense to me. There are two original Namekian planets, one per universe, besides the fact that, of course, the universes are said to be opposites based on what was, or linked based on what was said in Dragon Ball Super. It still isn't really a contradiction, because this could be the reason as to why that is. Another interesting piece of dialogue slash lore is that Kibito reveals that a normal spaceship would not be able to get to the demon realm. This could be as to why Frieza's forces and the Galactic Patrol and some of these other space, I guess, corporations or factions could never get to the demon realm, because it takes a very special kind of ship to be able to get there. And in this episode, Bulma is sort of marveled at the technology, and she's going to get to work on fixing the Supreme Kai ship so that they can go into the demon realm to save Dende. But prior to that, Glorio shows up in his ship, takes Goku and the Supreme Kai with him, and they're going to go in there first, while Vegeta, Piccolo, and Bulma will follow suit once the ship is finished being repaired within 10 days. Another important piece of clarification is a discussion about the pointy ears. They asked Supreme Kai, is everyone with pointy ears from the demon realm? And the Supreme Kai says, not everyone, but you can assume that most are. So that would mean that just because somebody has pointy ears does not necessarily mean they're from the demon realm. So I've seen all kinds of questions from people. Is Tapion from the demon realm? Is Moro and the Heaters? A lot of different characters. And the answer is right there. No, not all of them, but you can assume that some, or that most, are. And it's also stated in this episode that many people from the demon realm sought freedom and left the demon realm to go found other planets in different parts of Universe 7, or maybe even different parts of the multiverse. This could explain why there are yard rats in Universe 2 and in Universe 7. This could explain why the civilizations of the multiverse are spread so vastly. This could also explain why so many different characters have pointy ears. Remember, Not everyone, but most. So is Moro from the demon realm? Well, he is a magician. He is somebody who once battled the Grand Supreme Kai. So that to me is pretty damn demonic, if I do say so myself. And other characters, the Heaters, they might also be. But this is a fun bit of lore. But in a way, it makes me wonder if the demon realm existed prior to the multiverse, or at least a very early version of the multiverse had the demon realm, and maybe the civilizations, many started there and sort of populated the multiverse. They were fruitful and they populated the other 12 universes as the years went on. Again, this is just a theory and a possibility. I don't know how much Toriyama has added or changed to the original idea of the demon realm, because it does appear like the demon realm is maybe not just part of Universe 7. Maybe it's its own thing now. Remember, Toriyama did not come up with the multiverse until 2013's Battle of Gods. And as a result of that, he may have just scrapped that original idea he talked about and just gone with this version of the demon realm for Dragon Ball Daima. Ultimately, it does not mean there's different canons with Super and Daima. It does not mean that it's, Toriyama forgot. Maybe he did. It could be that Toriyama did forget. And that does happen. Toriyama has forgotten about many things throughout his career. But even so, there are tons of contradictions even in the original manga. People seem to think that the only plot holes in Dragon Ball are stuff that's in the anime and not the manga, or in this show versus that show versus this and that, or that Toriyama never contradicted himself, but he certainly did, because he is a forgetful man, although he didn't forget as much as people think he did. He has forgotten some bits of information. This conversation would also imply that a lot of people did not like being controlled or being under the reign of the demon kings of the past. Kibito himself tells a bit of the backstory that there was a time when many Majin, now remember, the term Majin here is not just about the Buu type of creature, that's people from the demon realm, that they slipped out of the demon realm to go, create new civilizations. And then at one point it was forbidden to leave the demon realm. As I said in my review, I genuinely wonder who it was that put the kibosh on that. Who was it that ordered the demon realm to be separated from everything else and to no longer allow people to leave? Was it because of Majin Buu and the attack on the sacred Kai realm? Was it something else, some other event from many years ago? Could it have been the Moro story? There's a lot of possibilities here, and I hope Daima tells us later. But I think my favorite deep cut and my favorite Easter egg of this episode has to do with Goku trying to find the power pole, the Nyoibo. Goku used this sacred artifact to connect the realm of the sacred Karin land with the sacred heavenly realm, that is to say Karin's palace from the lookout. I'm using both Japanese and dub terms so that everybody understands, but there was an episode of original Dragon Ball episode 123, The Secret of Nyoibo, and in that episode Goku spends the episode trying to find the power pole. And this sort of little sequence in Daima episode 2 appears to be a complete throwback to that. Goku's looking everywhere to find this thing. And it turns out it was on Kame Island at the Kame house being used to dry clothing. It was a clothesline. The disrespect to this sacred artifact is just, it's funny. It puts a smile on my face because Toriyama wrote that. Like, I highly doubt it was any other writer, because that's the kind of thing Toriyama would do. Because in the original Dragon Ball episode I mentioned a minute ago, I think Launch was using it as a broomstick. So it's a clear Easter egg and homage to OG Dragon Ball. And there's probably a lot more of those to come in Daima. I also find it interesting that Goku feels like the best way to even the score in the combat category, because he doesn't know how to fully use his body yet, is by bringing back the Nyoibo, the power pole. Goku has not used this thing as an artifact since, in battle, that is, since probably the attack on the Red Ribbon base was probably the last time that he used it outside of the Dragon Ball Z movies. So it's been a while, and Goku probably feels more confident with it. Obviously, the meta reason is because Daima's the 40th anniversary, and they're trying to tribute what Dragon Ball originally was, which is Goku with the stick. But hey, I'm fine with it because we know that Goku will eventually control his body, learn how to fire Ki Blast, and go Super Saiyan. It's just that it'll take a couple episodes before he can actually, get back to feeling comfortable doing that. When we finally get to the Glorio part of the episode, this is where things really take an interesting turn because there is clear foreshadowing here. The Supreme Kai asked Glorio how he knows about Goku being a kid again. And obviously we know that he was spying on Goma and them in the first episode. Well, he says that he heard it from the king of the third demon realm. That would be Goma. And then he says that he watched the battle with Majin Buu through a magic monitor. That's all true. However, then he says, I was ordered by the king to come here. Now, implications there would be he was ordered from Goma to come there. But that's not who he's talking about. And so Supreme Kai quickly asks him, interrogating him right away, so you served the king of the third demon world? And Glorio responds back and says, no, I was given the request in secret to come get you. Why would Goma be the one to get Goku to go to the demon realm? This to me just comes off really, really shady, and I would not be surprised if down the road Glorio has his own motives or might be working in league with some other factions to overthrow Goma. This was talked about all the way back in July in my first big inside leak video, where I talked about how there's going to be a Game of Thrones type of situation where different people in the demon realm want that throne. And you can already tell that Dr. Orinsu does not want to play ball with Goma. And this guy Glorio's intentions are not clear, at least as of yet. The conversation later on would imply that maybe there's another king that hasn't been revealed yet who might be the guy that Glorio is working for. And it's possible that may be the actual final villain of the show. This is not a spoiler. I genuinely don't know because I don't have all the details of everything. But it is interesting to, sort of speculate. And of course, feel free to leave a comment with your theories down in the description, or in the comment section, that is, because I want to know what you guys think about all this. So the episode comes to a conclusion with the three of them heading into the demon realm, and episode 3 will be the demon realm finally being seen by Goku's eyes for the first time. With that being said, that's the end of the video. Right now on your screen, some more videos that you should watch, including my review, talk about the world between worlds, and so much more involving Dragon Ball Daima. Thanks as always. See you guys real soon. Take care of yourself and each other.